I heard a noise. Yeah, there was a that our robot vacuum was had reattached to the base unit and was sucking all the trash out into the bigger bag.
You have your robot vacuum and a robot lawnmower,
Yes.
and
Yes.
probably some robot lights, maybe some other home automation stuff.
Oh
Yes.
God, yeah. Yeah, of course.
Uh,
Doesn't everyone?
I feel like maybe not the majority, but I feel like more and more people are getting them. Yeah. I think before we start, maybe we should address the weird comment we got at the end of the last stream that kind of threw us for a loop. So what happened there?
Yeah, so that was so it totally threw me off
Same.
for quite a while because like I'm I'm I know we might have mentioned something about various things that are going on in the world that might
Viruses or what have you.
cause
Yeah.
somebody to um and so we get this comment in the chat saying your channel has gone against the community guidelines and
Right.
will be banned for or whatever they said, turned off for 2 weeks because to slap your hand. And it's like, what's going on here? What? And I'm like looking for any mention of this. You seem to go right back to normal pretty quickly, but I
Yeah.
was like,
Oh,
what do you mean my channel is being
it's
taken
also not my
offline for two
channel. We,
weeks?
we like let's be real here.
Yeah, and so uh, as soon as we got off, I went into the YouTube studio and did the chat with YouTube, which I don't remember being there before. I didn't think
Yeah,
there was
that's
a
pretty
way
cool.
to get in touch
Nice.
with YouTube. Well, somebody, but I was able to start that chat, and they said we have no record of anything. Where did you see this? And even in the YouTube chat replay, there was nothing.
Oh, they may have caught it. Maybe it's common. So they, yeah.
So, well, or is there something where it's, we're also using StreamYard? Is there something where it somehow goes direct through StreamYard? Or
Yeah, interesting.
I didn't even think of that until just now.
Hmm. Not that I know of. I think it like aggregates as far as I know from the chat
Yeah,
sources, but maybe.
right. So I don't know. It was weird. So thankfully, there is no such strike against this channel.
Right.
Because I'm sure YouTube really only cares about people that have more than say 3 subscribers or 3 viewers,
It's all
especially
about
ones
the
whose last name is different.
right, exactly. This is all my family. I've got a rather extensive family, you know.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that though. I was a little bit worried. Sorry
yeah,
for any drama that we created during the live stream, but yeah, luckily it was
yeah,
nothing to be concerned about, which is
yeah,
great. I mean, that's good to hear.
yeah,
It sounds like the system works. If
yeah,
the comments are gone, maybe they caught them.
yeah, yeah. That I say they had no record of such a thing. They looked through everything and they said there's no there is no uh, problem.
Fantastic.
Um, and we already have a comment about where's Kona at.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, full disclosure, my dog is at the dog groomers because we could learn how to cut our dog's nails, but we're a little bit anxious. Let's just say at this point in time, we
Did
want someone else
was
to be the bad person.
Was there a mention of your? I don't remember hearing your dog's name before.
Oh yeah, maybe
Did
I
we
haven't.
talk
So
about it
yeah,
here?
possibly not. So my dog is, we believe, a bug, so like a Boston Terrier pug, and
Uh huh.
he is
Uh huh.
he how do we say this? High energy, I think would be a good description
Yeah.
of it. He's a puppy, um, but basically, yeah, we don't want to clip his nails because we feel like it might scar him, and we want to make it a positive experience early on.
Right. So
Yes, so
were you
we're even getting
thinking
some
of?
jokes. Yes, it is the dog.
Yeah.
Is the dog out with the data? Yes, excellent jokes
So
there.
did you were you thinking of grooming the dog yourself?
In terms of like washing and stuff like that, normally we're not so picky about that. Or they do a whole
Yeah.
bunch of other services. Like they'll trim
Yeah.
the funny hair the dogs get in the bum. I don't know. This seems to be like a vanity thing. Definitely not doing that. And honestly, don't wash my dogs very often. or have not in the
Yeah.
past watched my dogs very often. So it's
Yeah.
good. It's like once a month kind of thing. It is a
Yeah.
little bit frou frou, like fancy for us even. But it is neat. He's happy. He comes back with a little like bandana sometimes, which he hates. We find is awesome. So we'll take a few shots and we'll take it off him. But yeah, I know. I live in Yaletown, Vancouver. This is sort of like par for the course. Getting your small dog groomed.
We get ours groomed every 6 weeks.
There we go. So I'm in good company.
And because otherwise, with our dog, it's a Havanese,
Right.
14-pound little dog. And man, if you do not comb her every day, it starts to get tangled, and we don't comb her every day or even
Right.
every 6 weeks. So we hand her off to somebody else to deal with, and she combs through it very carefully and
I,
and washes her up um,
you like all these comments. I think Matt has
I
found the comments.
I think I found the comments, and there's one that's been held for review.
Oh, interesting. Here we go.
Yeah,
All
not
right.
not in the StreamYard UI, but in the
What else? Sorry.
YouTube UI from
Not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but the dog's Kona is named after a place in Hawaii. Our first time there.
okay.
The reason I wear a high hat is also for the Hawaiian state. I'm trying to embrace the aloha culture as I get older, and be forgiving and thankful and gracious. It's
Hmm.
difficult for me, let me tell you, but I'm trying. I'm trying hard, and I think that's sort of like maybe a reminder of our
Yeah.
first trip.
And we were talking about before we started the stream. You got a great shirt from
Yeah,
Sydney. Apparently,
yeah,
that's all you saw of the Opera House.
yeah, exactly. I didn't see the opera house, but I got a nice shirt. I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this many times, but like time zones are
Yeah.
difficult, especially for me going to APAC or ANZ. And I really should have seen more. I did not. But I need to go back.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely needs to. But I do love the
Yeah.
shirt.
I think last minute I gave you a list of my favorite 5 or 6 things to do in Sydney
Right.
because I used to go there a lot. Um, and yeah, as I got older, the dealing with time zones got harder and harder and harder every single time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel that.
yeah,
So I think I'm from a small farm town kind of thing. We moved to like the bigger city later on in life, but really travel was not something I'd done prior
yeah,
to the age of like 17, when I went to like Newark, I think, and then from Newark to no, it might have been LaGuardia to Japan, like a massive trip, and then came
yeah,
back. That was it for years and years and
yeah,
years. And then my 30s, I might go to Toronto once in a while, but like
yeah,
honestly, not a lot of travel. So it's been a rude awakening for me, but also the time
yeah,
zones just really hurt.
yeah, yeah. I remember when my dad was whatever president or something at the local Rotary Club down
Right.
in Miami, and uh, for the Rotary convention, all the presidents of the local groups all around the world all gathered together at one place. And that year it was either in Sydney or somewhere else that's on that kind of region of the world, so they ended up going to Australia and going to a few other places. I thought, oh, someday I will have a chance to go to Australia one time.
Right.
And then I got a job where I was going to it every 5 times a year, and seen a lot. Yeah,
Yeah, careful what you wish for, I guess, right?
yeah,
I
exactly,
will say that that
exactly.
first trip that I went on was a Rotary exchange, so I owed
Oh yeah,
I owe some debt to the Rotary Club locally. At least they really
yeah,
expanded how I thought about the world and how people think
yeah,
and what culture really is outside of our sort of Western thought process and
yeah.
stuff. So yeah, super super thankful.
Cool.
But
So you
I
had
do want
some,
to ask. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, no, you had. I was about to jump ahead, but you were. It looked like you were going to ask something too.
Yeah, so on this trip, I realized that the bag that I'm using is aging, and it's not like it's broken down at this point in time. But when the plastic gets brittle and things start to rattle, and it's
Yeah.
it's one of those haze bags, which are relatively affordable, which is great. They're basically a plastic shell, like a little bit of fabric
Hmm.
inside, and some big wheels, and I really like the big wheels, as well
Yep.
as a pretty sturdy handle because I've snapped those
Yep.
handles in half before, and I'm
Yep.
trying to figure out what I should do. I feel like the easiest answer here It's just to get the newer version of the same bag because it fits in most overheads, works pretty much everywhere. No, okay. And I've looked at like the Tumis and the Remova and stuff like that. They're really nice bags. But those are super
No.
pricey, a little bit out of my range. So I figured since you've been a seasoned traveler, I should ask you what your recommendation might be here.
So I think there's only two choices.
All
There's
right.
only two choices, and it's mostly because of the warranty.
Okay.
And anything else, some of them have good US warranties, but as soon as
Right.
you are traveling outside of the country, um, it's useless until you get back to the US to get it fixed. And so if
Right.
your zipper is broken or whatever, that's not covered outside of the US. Unless you go to somewhere like, or you buy a bag from, I think the warranty is still great on the Victorinox, I think it is.
Okay.
Uh, or Briggs and Riley.
Oh, I've
And
never
those
that company before.
two, so Briggs and Riley is, we have one of those, and we have one of the Victorinox. I used to have a couple of the Victorinox bags, and they have lifetime warranties worldwide, and so
Hmm.
there are repair centers everywhere. And I've gotten, yeah, I mean, things break on bags. I've had wheels snap off. I've had handles break. I've had um, zippers pull off because whoever the baggage handler is just grabs the zipper for some reason and
Of
yanks the
course.
whole thing off. And then I've had them repaired for free in New York City and in Sydney and in Melbourne and in Singapore and in Hong Kong and in Buenos Aires. And every
Okay.
time the repair is completely free. And it's just, I'm sure I've gone through the equivalent of 5 or 6 back. I mean, for a while there, I was doing 150,000 flight miles a year on mostly on
Oh,
United, but also on some other airlines, KLM. And so that means a lot of flights. I mean, doing 5 round trip flights from Amsterdam to to Australia. I mean, that bag was in use a lot.
right.
But it kept getting repaired, and there's never any question, never any problem. And so, yeah, the Briggs and Riley bags, you're going to spend $600, $700 on a bag.
I mean,
But it's going to
it's a
last
lot, but
forever.
it's not awful. Yeah, yeah. If you're
Yeah.
replacing it
And
five
it's going to
times,
last. That Victorinox bag that I got, I probably have had for 20 years, 25 years. And,
that's amazing.
it's, we just go and, I mean, it's, the repair places are never in a convenient place. um, and so for here in Seattle, there's a repair place right by SeaTac Airport. Well, I
Okay.
guess it's kind of relevant, it's kind of appropriate. But in New York City, there's one actually right by the Datadog office.
Nice.
Um,
So right down
and
Midtown, I guess is yeah.
Yeah, it was actually closer to the Port Authority. Well, actually, Port Authority is right across the street.
It
So
is. Yeah.
I think it's right there. Yeah. Um, and there's a few options in New York, but in other places, I've had to get a cab or somewhere to get it repaired. But and I remember going into that New York repair place one time, and I said, so what other bags are maybe I need to get another bag. What other bags should I get? And he said, these are the only choices. I mean, Briggs and Riley and Victorinox. Everything else, we would charge you $100 for the zipper or something like that. But because they they cover the repairs, and I seem to remember that you have to get the higher line bags before um, that warranty is in
That's a
effect.
good tip.
But
Yeah, because I've seen some pretty affordable Victorinox bags
yeah,
before. Okay.
and so you just have to make sure that it's the one with the global lifetime warranty, and it's, as I say,
And
I
just to be
probably would
clear,
have
this is
spent,
the
yeah.
like the Swiss knife company, right?
Yeah,
This
like
is
Swiss
okay.
Army. I'm not sure what the official name of the company is,
Okay.
but because I think the Swiss Army brand in Europe is not Victorinox, which is I think a U.S. company.
Oh, that's interesting. So
I
we had one
I,
other
I don't know.
comment here that apparently Crumpler does that. I've used Crumpler camera bags and really like
Yeah.
them. There was also a question if you've spent any time in Kuala Lumpur, I believe is what the KL is, just because they're saying that it's very hot.
Oh
You've been
yeah.
all over, so I figured. Yeah, okay.
I used to go to KL quite a lot. and some of the towns outside of Kale. And in fact, I remember one time I got there and I wanted to go for a little bit of a walk, and so I
Mhm.
just ended up started walking. I mean, I saw a place on the map. I was like, oh, okay, I want to walk there.
Right.
And then I got to a point where there was a highway between where I was and where I wanted to go, and it, it looked like it was just a big road because it was on the ground, like ground level. And so I hop over the median and kind of run across this road. And when I get to the other side, I see that, yeah, it's on the ground there, but on either side, it's going up into the, on pylons. And this is like a major highway. And so I'm imagining the headlines of, crazy American killed on major highway in Asia because he's an idiot. Um, but yeah, I used to go to KL a lot.
I'm sure that's been in the news before.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but most people don't. I mean, it's hot, so you don't really want to walk there too much.
Right.
Um, I think I was at from my hotel to get to the Petronas Towers. The two towers with a bridge in the middle that you always see. It's great, but yeah, it was stupid.
I feel like that
Many
humidity
stupid things around the
w-
world.
would be just a killer for me at least. I don't know. A lot of APAC
Yeah.
trips for me involves a lot of sweat, a lot
Yeah.
of
Yeah, I remember I always remember that first time my sister gave me a trip to she and her husband spent a lot of time in Nepal. It was part of her PhD project and she had been going, she ran a free healthcare clinic in Nepal for 20, 30 years. And so one time I went with her and we connected through Bangkok, and it was a time when there would be a truck that came out to the plane. Everybody loaded up on this truck, and the truck drove you to the terminal. And getting out of that plane and feeling this blast of hot air, like this wall of hot, wet moisture, like
eh,
after hours in the plane from I think we flew from Portland um, to get to Bangkok. Oh God, it was. And
now
I
are
always think
you
of that.
yeah, are you a book bag user? Because I find that's when I notice it immediately. It's like that gap between your back and the book bag just
Oh yeah,
immediately is where I start to find. So do you find like
yeah.
as I get older, I find that I want to take the book bag off and put it on the suitcase. And that's like, I'm also looking
Hmm.
for a book bag, but that's another concern about the book bag. It needs one of those little
Yeah,
straps to attach to the
yeah,
handle. I know we're like deep in the weeds
yeah,
here on the bag side, but like I really need to be able to take it off when it's humid because
yeah,
otherwise I'll just sweat through. It's awful.
yeah, yeah. I've had a number of. I mean, I usually tend to have a backpack of some type,
Right.
and now I have whether it's the Monotorama branded backpack that I have from a few years back,
Yep.
um, or a bunch of GoRuck backpacks, which are
Okay.
also super indestructible. Um, what's his name? I think it's no, a friend of Jason in the Netherlands really loved the GoRuck bags, and he brought one of the. This is a long story. I should cut that.
No, no, it's
But
totally fine. But I think what we're getting at is that like
yeah,
this seems to be one of those things that people in our industry, not even just in our role, but we
yeah,
will over research bags.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
why I figured I'd ask you because yeah, getting a recommendation from a friend who's also traveling is one of those
yeah.
sort of tricks or hacks that I found. It's like an easy way to make
Right.
sure that you're satisfied because somebody's already done all the legwork for you.
Yeah. There's a Kickstarter right now. There's always a Kickstarter about a bag,
Of course.
but there's a Kickstarter right now from the folks that did. I bought from a company called Gravel. I bought a blanket, and I don't usually
A
care about
blanket.
these blankets for a plane, but this was really great because
Right.
it's got like a little pocket at the bottom to stick your feet in, and then little clips to clip
Nice.
around your neck, so it
Ooh.
always stays on you. It's just wide enough to wrap around you, and when you're in a seat for 13 hours, 15 hours,
Right.
whatever it is, flying from Amsterdam to Singapore, it's really nice to have that kind of wrap around you. And in fact, when I went on the rafting trip in Idaho just 4 weeks ago or so,
Hmm.
I brought that as well, and it was ended up being the blanket I used for the trip rather than any sleeping bag because it was hot outside, but I also
Right.
wanted to cover. And so So anyway, Gravel right now is doing another Kickstarter with a duffel. And with one of the problems with
Oh,
duffels so often is that they have, all these straps and outside pockets, and this is really just it's just this outer layer that is thin but easy to open up, um, but also has a couple of clips if you do want to use it with a shoulder, but it's not that shoulder assembly, and the handle assembly is not always in the way like it is with so many duffels and so many
right.
bags that are soft bags, especially around camera bags. I mean, unrelated to this, but
Hmm.
so many of these things have way too much padding and way too much thickness. And I just want, like with a camera bag, I just want a thin bag, because I mean, cameras are pretty close to indestructible. I mean, as long as you don't slam against the wall, but generally pretty strong. So I don't need all this padding. And this duffel is also very minimal. Contain all your stuff. Not be super huge, but contain all your stuff. And yeah, it looked really cool. I packed it.
Yeah, that is what I'm guilty of right now, and this is
Yeah.
really good advice, and maybe what I needed to hear because I've been looking at, I guess Manfrotto by Kata, and I've been looking for a
Mm,
replacement bag, but it is padded everywhere, so the total
yeah.
usable volume is actually quite
Yeah.
small. Whereas everything I put
Right.
in there is really taken care of. But these days, I'm maybe taking one camera body, one lens,
Yeah.
maybe two lenses, that kind of thing. If
Yeah.
if I'm shooting, sure, but like the main thing is need to be able to put the laptop in, maybe a camera.
Right.
The rest of it is like snacks and battery packs and stuff like
Right.
that. None of this needs padding. So I've been looking at the Peak Design duffel, but it's like a
Yep.
30-liter duffel bag, and I
Yeah.
just don't feel like I have that much stuff. So a
Yeah.
lot of the comments are saying, yeah, it's smaller, cheaper, lighter is what you're looking for,
Yeah.
and
I have
maybe
the
that's
Peak
what I need to
Design
hear. Yeah,
backpack,
how is it?
and it's just so much padding. It's like, I
Right.
don't want this. I think of like, I had a bag from Tom Bin,
Yeah.
out of here in Seattle,
Okay.
and they had a bag that used a lot of sailcloth, and I would like, modern sailcloth, not canvas, but like a
Right.
modern, what a modern sailboat would have now. And that is super super strong, but super super thin material as the kind of outer shell, and even some of the inner pockets have some sort of support at the bottom would be great, but generally just that minimal coverage. Because as I say, I mean, these cameras, you can, especially if it's a good quality piece of equipment, I mean, they're pretty strong. I've I remember,
The prosumer lines for sure, like that you and I
yeah.
are probably grabbing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even I remember one time I was standing at the on Victoria Peak, I think it's called, in Hong Kong. I had my one of my cameras up on a tripod, and I dropped the body of the other one onto the concrete. It's fine, no problem. These things are pretty durable, and so as long as you don't slam it over and over like a hammer against something, you're generally pretty good.
Now, when
Put
you're
insurance on it.
but I mean, yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
but I probably should. When you're looking at like a list like this, and this is maybe more of a workflow question, how do you organize your thoughts? Are you still like an Evernote user? Do you draw? Like, are you a doodler? What is your like? You wouldn't go into org mode to write a list of bags, would you?
No, but I mean,
Now that I've
so
invoked
I
it,
I use I use Obsidian for everything.
okay.
So there's a, I mean, it's all in Markdown notes, and I mean, now with Obsidian, there's plugins for all sorts of drawing tools and other tools and so you could do a drawing in there. I don't tend to, I don't know. I actually, when I take the notes, or when I do some research, what is it that stuck in my head longest? And that's what resonates, and that's what I end up buying.
So
Um,
maybe this is my approach. Like I would draw like an ideal bag. So the bag needs to be this
mm,
size, like these dimensions, because I know the airplane needs to have like a loop here and like a
yeah,
pocket for a water bottle or something. Maybe I'm just more of
yeah,
a visual thinker. So for me, like having something I can doodle in pretty quickly is
yeah.
good. And Apple's got notes, but it's just
Hmm.
eh. The pencil's great though. I've been using
Yeah.
Moleskino's app Flow for a
Oh
lot of the
yeah.
stuff. Like when I'm really just sort of brainstorming. But
Right.
brainstorming, like pencil and paper kind of brainstorming,
Right.
I haven't used pencil and paper brainstorming in like
Yeah.
5 years, which is,
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of ashamed because I used to be kind
Yeah.
of the bullet journal type of person, but just not anymore. But so when
Yeah.
it comes to like those doodles or that kind of like
I mean,
drawing
for
thing,
that kind
are
of
you pencil and
thing, I
paper?
mean, for drawing things out,
Hmm.
especially when I was like when I was at Datadog and I needed to come up with an app that
Right.
was being used. We talked about demos, I think, last time or time
Yeah.
before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the tools I would use was on the iPad, a tool called Concepts. And
Oh,
Concepts is
nice.
right
Okay.
really nice because it's this infinite canvas, and you can zoom in, and you've got all the line drawing tools, and all the tools that you'd want. But it's also just a piece of paper that goes on forever, um, and and that was super useful. And I use that in a lot of actually recording that screen for some videos. Um,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
some people use Procreate for that. I think you can do like a
yeah,
time
Procreate
lapse
is
kind of
another one,
thing.
great one. Yep.
Yeah, we're getting some comments about duffel bag size. Yeah, that's what I noticed with the
Yeah.
Peak Design one. It's great, but also if it's going to be check luggage, then I don't know if I want a duffel bag.
Yeah.
It's hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's just clothing, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, they like I
But
would
having
sketch
something
out.
that has that sleeve, I think actually that Peak Design backpack does have the sleeve, so I can slip it over the roller bag, and
Right.
that is really convenient.
Yeah, I thought it was patented or something because it's hard to find backpacks that
Hmm.
have like that little, yeah, the
Right.
little thing, or even a way to, like you were talking about, the padding on the shoulder straps is
Right.
really bulky. Being able to push those
Right.
away as well is pretty handy, but not all
Yeah.
bags do that. Kata does,
One
but
other
again,
thing
yep, go ahead.
One other thing I've had I remember getting this at the local travel store here on Bainbridge, and so it's like a standard thing that you'll find in any travel like focused store,
Yep.
and it was a thing that would attach to the hand, like the top handle of the bag, and
Hmm.
could roll up so that Velcro all together, and it wasn't too super annoying. But when you got to the airport terminal and you wanted to put your bag on top of your other bag, and you didn't have that slip, this thing would basically unroll, and it had two bungee cords basically attached to it, and you wrap it
Smart.
around your top bag and just latch it onto the handle, and now
Ah.
you've got that, and you wrap it around or have it crisscross around the back of the handle, the pull handle on your bag, and now you've got that strap without having a backpack that has that strap.
Now, how stable is it? Because I feel like I'm on like an Olympic quest every time I get off the plane to get through customs as fast as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we never. I mean, if it's a super slippery bag, it's going to slip out. But generally, if you ever, it's going to be different for every bag. But I think that worked out really well for us.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I feel like it seems comfort is one thing that people seem to now be thinking about in terms of
Right.
shoulder straps, and shoes are great, but they take up more
Yeah.
space. And then convenience of being able to travel. I think as people travel more, adding travel features to bags becomes it's like not an afterthought, but it's kind of like one of those things that they tack on as a selling feature. May or
Right.
may not work, but it's there. So when you're checking out, maybe you're using Excel to compare your bags. When you're checking out your checklist of like your MVP or
Right.
your skateboard or whatever, you've decided that the thing that you need to get from point A to point B needs to have these things, and that the bag
Yep.
might check that box kind of thing. But it needs to actually work, otherwise
Yeah, but
it'll
I
fall
mean
apart.
when I think of those types of checklists that we've done, that my wife and I have done, when
Right.
we bought this house that we're in, and as we were leading up to buying a house, we had thought of all those. In fact, we had done it twice because this is the second house we bought together. The place in Boston, we had this list of here are the things that we must have in the next house we buy, and we've repeated that process for this house. Here are the things we must have. And we look at, that house in Jamaica Plain in Boston, as well as
Hmm.
this one on Bainbridge Island, and you compare it to the list that we created, none of the things on that list are in either one of these houses. We need to be in Winslow, the main town. We're not. We need to have an open floor plan in the first one. It wasn't. We need to have all these things, and none of those things were there, and they were still perfect.
Now,
And
have
those
you
are
ever done
the
that?
most expensive things in our lives.
This is sort of off script, but like, have you ever gone through like the RFP process? I guess there's two sides of this. One is like creating RFP is request for proposal
Right.
for those in the chat. It's like it's a way for you to say what your so Matt might have an RFP between he and his partner about like how to buy a house, and their RFP is like needs to
Right.
have a pool. Definitely has to be like
Yep.
above ground pool. I don't know, I'm making stuff up.
Yeah.
2-car garage, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But you make out a list. The same thing applies in software. You make it a list. It needs to have, I don't know, Active Directory integration is one of
Right.
those common things in enterprise
Yeah.
software, just so you can handle user management and stuff like that. But have you ever created one of those internally for a software vendor? Because it's
I have not.
so annoying. It's so
Yeah.
annoying. And I
I
think what I'm getting at is exactly what you're saying, is that like rarely does the software package you go with tick all the boxes,
Yeah.
but it ticks the important ones that you've weighted. Generally,
Yeah.
you would hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember we had there's several jobs ago. I worked for a kind of an analyst firm and we
Mm-hmm.
did reviewers guides and white papers and competitive analysis work. And we had a customer. I think it might have been like Candle Corporation or BMC, or I don't know, one of these monitoring companies 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And in we decided we were going to come up with one of these charts of
Mm-hmm.
features that we need to have and submit it to a bunch of companies. And in there, kind of in the middle, we decided, we had lots of real things that we wanted each of the companies to have. But in the middle, we just made up a feature. We made it. We said
To see if
it
they tick
must
the box.
have, and we made sure that this didn't exist. So we must have LRF, feature support for LRF, and LRF we knew internally to stand for little rubber feet. And this was a monitoring product, and we looked everywhere for mention of LRF or anything that stood for, could stand,
Right. Be
LRF
confused
could be
for.
those letters, and there was nothing. And so we sent this out to everyone, and we got all of these responses. Oh yes, we have support for LRF, or it's coming in the next version. It's like, really? What is it? And then there was one company that said, we have no idea what LRF is. Can you tell us?
Oh, there you go.
And
Yeah.
we said, well, it's a trick question. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. They're like, thanks for wasting
Yeah.
my time. I've dealt with the RFPs as well on like
Yeah.
on the software side, and often the stuff that you get is just it's like a long laundry list of things that they want,
Yeah.
and often it's difficult to
Yeah.
get them all, but you want to at least make a good effort. So maybe like,
Yeah.
perhaps they meant LFR, low frequency
Yeah.
response. Like I'm
Right.
not.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I definitely remember having to deal with responding to those things when I was like a sales engineer, essentially at
Yeah.
Microsoft. But it's been a long time since I've been in a role that cared about those things.
Yeah, I've also been,
Yeah.
we'll call it like a junior SE previously, and that's
Yeah.
mainly where I honestly just look at it and maybe just pass the buck. Like,
Yeah.
seems like we have
Yeah.
most of these. What do you think,
Oh
Dave? And
yeah.
just
We're
send it
good.
off.
Yep.
So we get a comment
Yep.
saying, yeah, the honest response is the company that you want to go with. And
Right.
so sometimes that can be true. Sometimes it could be that the sales org and the engineering org are completely separate. It depends on
Yeah.
the company that you're working with. It is good to know that your sales team can deliver on anything they're talking
Right.
about, especially when they're talking about the next feature. So that's definitely
Yeah.
pretty important. Like Matt was saying, if
Yeah.
somebody says LRF is going to be in the next release, then you kind of
Yeah.
wonder, like, did you talk to the engineering team? It kind of it might be an indicator of some other issues that are going on.
Yeah. I remember what my first job, I was actually still in school, was with PC Docs down in Tallahassee, Florida, because I was at Florida State at the time. And I was in the support org, and the sales guy just came back to Tallahassee and said, "Oh, it was great. We just closed this massive deal. It's huge." So really, tell us more about this. Well, they were really excited that about the fact that we support this and this, and it's a document management company,
Mm-hmm.
and so I support this and really excited about the Mac product and about all these other things. Goes through all the list, and then somebody said, we don't have a Mac product. And it's like one of the most critical things of the deal.
Right.
And so we hired a bunch of Mac developers and made a Mac product.
Yeah, I think that's one of those maybe pieces that people don't talk about a lot, is when a deal is big enough,
Yeah.
you will tell the client, like, hey, if it's this big enough, if
Yeah.
this big for you, we'll look at it, kind of thing. But this is often the case when you have access to engineering. You can say, like, this is make or break, but hey, this deal is very big.
Yeah.
What can we do? Like that, it might take us 6 months, but is that acceptable for
Yep.
you? That kind of thing. But the other thing is interesting to me is, like, when you say no to something
Yeah.
like an RFP or maybe even a task internally. So for me, saying no to an RFP, this is why I'd pop it off to somebody else, because it felt like saying no to an RFP was like, you're not, do not pass go, like the deal is not started, there's no conversation.
Right.
They probably won't come back to talk to you, kind of thing. But I have said no a couple times in RFPs and had people come back saying, oh yeah, our request is unreasonable. You're not the only one who said no.
Right.
Like, okay,
Right.
excellent. Phew.
Yeah.
But how do you approach that?
I would be,
Feels like a
I
maturity.
don't know. Well, I don't know. I feel like I also need somebody at a more senior level that agrees that this is
Right.
stupid to do, or, because we've got better things to do with our time than respond to this thing.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. The messaging around
Sometimes
no
needs to
is
be an executive sponsor for that decision.
right. Your CIO, your
I
CTO,
Yeah.
CFO.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, depending on how big the deal is.
Yeah, I hear you. Even internally, I find if someone asks me to do a task, being able to say,
Yeah.
my workload's pretty big, because
Yeah.
what's the term? People pleaser. I feel like I'm more of a people pleaser when it comes to things, and I tend to say yes a lot, regardless of what's in Jira or what your task load looks like, or
Right.
conferences coming up or demos that you have to do, that kind of thing. I tend
Right.
to say yes, and as I get further on in my career, I'm realizing that that's actually a disservice not only to myself, but
Sure.
also to the person I'm saying yes to, because they could have found somebody else if I had have said
Right.
no, or I could have helped them with something else or a
Right.
different approach. But I'm starting to get used to saying no. And literally, I've stolen this from Cote's blog. So Michael Cote is somebody at Dell who puts out a blog on a regular basis. Sorry, not Dell, VMware now, on a regular basis,
Right.
which I read. And one of the things he was saying is that it feels like as you get further along in seniority, no becomes easier. So like the
Right.
time to know, I guess, is what we need to
Yeah.
work on. Like how we can shorten
Yeah.
that time to know. Like, is it 10 years in your career that it takes to be able to confidently say no to things? Is it 20?
Right.
Because I'm at 20 now, and it feels like I can
Yeah.
confidently say no. I need to remind myself that, like, no is an option.
Right.
What about you?
And I
Do you
guess
turn down work?
I don't know. There have definitely been times where I've known the right answer is no, and yet I said yes anyway, because this was somebody important, or
Right.
I wasn't thinking, and yet
Right.
every time somebody asked me about what should I do in this, I definitely say no. I mean, I have the right answer when it's not me on the line. And it's like, oh yeah, totally gotta say no. I mean, they'll respect you more for it, or whatever the right answer is. And that's usually the right answer. But then when I do it myself, like, I forget all the smart responses, and yes, I can do that. And then I'm
Absolutely.
screwed.
That being self-aware is something I,
Yeah.
I also struggle with. Like,
Yeah.
not what would somebody else do, but like what would Ryan do? Like, what if you
Right.
asked yourself this question?
Yeah.
What would you say to you?
Yeah.
It is hard to give advice to yourself on things
Yeah.
without asking somebody else. I've noticed,
Yeah.
especially in the moment during a meeting. I think the most powerful thing I can say is, we're getting some attacks here.
Hi, Stella. What's that?
Some drama at the Williams home.
Why is the desk high? Because I'm talking to Ryan, and I'm talking on the big camera up here, and we're talking to our thousands of viewers.
Absolutely.
Of course, I rounded up 4 to the nearest 1,000.
That's how this works.
Hey, Stella, do you wanna go see what Mama's doing?
We'll cut this
She's
out in the
taking a
live.
nap? Okay. It's okay, great.
Can't quite see.
Yeah, I know, because the camera's up here. I don't think we want to put your face on camera to all the world to see. Not yet. Not until you're a little
Probably
older.
not required.
Yeah.
Can you wash me up?
What?
Can you wash me up? But why?
Because. Hey, can I come out and see you in about 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
20 minutes is too long.
It's too long?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could
15
shorten
minutes?
No. How about 3 minutes?
3 minutes? Oh, I think I need a little bit longer than that. Do you want to sit over here in the chair here?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the bargaining we're here for.
I think
Yeah.
you can have 5 minutes.
What's that?
Do you want 5 minutes?
5 minutes is good, yeah. Or more. More time, the better.
I like this. Stella said no right
Yes.
Why?
Oh, and now she's talking to the dog,
Excellent.
because the dog's in here
that
too.
the main conclusion here that I had is like understanding that you can say no, being honest with yourself,
Yeah.
doing it like Stella did. Yeah, 20
Yep.
minutes is too long, but this is yeah,
My God, that was great. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
case in point.
Oh, be careful with Jade. So, oh, she's licking you now. Good. Jade and Stella were kind of against each other for the first year or two of her life, of both
Right.
of their lives, and now they're kind of friendly to each other.
Inseparable.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good to hear. But I guess the last thing that I want to talk about, I don't know if we'll have time for it, but just sort of about interview strategies, because I'm talking to more people these days, and people come to us that there's a lot going on in the industry right now. Things are shifting and moving and shaking, that kind of stuff. And it's I realize that my interview technique may not be the best, and I'll tell you what it is, and you can give me yours. But a lot of times I'm trying to find out, at least for this role, sort of the personality, how somebody might deal with, a child and a dog during a webinar or a live stream
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
What that looks like as a real human.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to find questions that really give me that detail. So I end up sort of beating around the bush a lot, trying to find out how somebody reacts, basically. Do you have? Is there like a shortcut I'm missing? What's the best approach here?
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you talk about it, because hey, one of the things that so at Infra, one of the first things that we did after I started, not because I started, but one of the first things that happened.
Don't let any more of
when I
Matt's in.
started. We had this offsite, and so at the time the company was about 10 people, and we managed to find a Airbnb in Tiburon that had, I don't know, like 9 bedrooms or so, and so we all had a room. So, you okay?
Yeah.
Hey Jade, how about you come over here? And then we had all the seed round investors come to speak to us. Are you looking for Stella? Yeah, she's joined us for a live stream. So, hey Stella, come over here.
Just adding some flavor to the stream.
What are you pulling out? Here.
Next thing you know, the HDMI cables are coming out.
Yep. There you go.
Sorry.
Bye.
No worries.
Bye. Bye, Ryan.
Hi. We're all working from home. I'm sure this happened to most of us.
Yeah.
Hey, if not all.
I love that one where that was a news program, and
it's
yeah,
classic. See, that is
so
how
anyway,
not to react. For example, don't just shove them out. Or the big tables of books fall over, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. So we had all these seed round investors at the come into the backyard. It was this, oh God, it was such an amazing house. So they would come into the yard, and we would sit around, and they would tell us, how did they build whatever company, or what are some of the recommendations for us as a new company. And one of the things that one of them said was that he likes to do this every quarter or every 6 months, but make sure that not only are the employees there, but also their spouses, or even better, if there's room, for their children as well. Because seeing how, and I think this guy was also talking about, interviews, and also being able to, if maybe not an interview, but if there's a chance for a dinner, when you're doing that interview. So maybe it's for a little higher up person, but there's a dinner, but invite the spouse to that dinner, and seeing how the person reacted. They might have one reaction or one way of dealing with things in a business world that would be very different from that personal one, and they wanted to see both. And especially if there was a jarring difference between the two, that would be a sign that maybe it's not a good hire.
Right, like they're wearing a mask or
and
something.
yeah. And if they are speaking in a way that's not nice, either side, even if they are totally professional all the time in a business situation, but they're nasty to that spouse, then that's a bad sign and maybe something not worth pursuing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I've only had one of those
it's harder.
interviews before.
Yeah.
It was super stressful though, having an interview with your spouse over supper at like a keg or something. I ended up taking the job, but I thought it was highly unusual.
Yeah. I've never. I mean, every time when I did interviews at Datadog, it was always a conversation. There were like 5 or 6 high level things we wanted to understand about how they would, come up with an idea for a presentation or build out that presentation was important, but we'd have a conversation and kind of weave that into the conversation somewhere. But it was always just this conversation, and that way everybody felt kind of comfortable with that interview process, but we still got what we needed out of it.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, I'm a big fan of like whiteboard interviews, that kind of thing. But I also realize that this isn't fair. It's not really accessible for everybody. It's not fair. It depends on who you are. You might feel very like nervous or more anxious actually when it comes to a whiteboard question. So that's not the best either. But yeah, I do find the conversational kind of ones, for me at least, is the style that I enjoy. And then at least when I'm interviewing somebody, it seems like it puts them at ease as well. And I do want to know if someone can have the conversation, because at least in this role, it's important to be able to have a conversation.
Yeah. And I think one of the important things with interviews, I mean, it's important, whatever tool you use for recording those notes about the conversations that you have, that the second person has access to what the first person said.
Oh, that's a good point.
Because I mean, sometimes, I guess the reason we had all heard was like, well, you want to have a fresh view of this person, but also I want to know if they've already talked about this stuff before. It's like, in fact, I remember at least one person in the interview said, the last guy, we talked about this exact same thing. Didn't you compare notes? Like, well, I don't have access to the notes, and so that was always frustrating.
That's certainly happened to me in the past, and you could tell that like somebody's using the same examples or same story, because you end up talking about the same things. Like, tell me about a time where you've had,
because we're in the same role and we care about the same things, and so therefore we're going to end up in the same place unless we're told not to.
Those like standard questions that you try to avoid, but sometimes you mix in. Absolutely. I'm looking at different ways that are better maybe to judge like what somebody's done, but also like, hey, if you're junior to the role, what you're interested in, not bigger than like if you were to give an animal, which animal would you be? It is one of the ones that I've been asked before. Or
if you were a color, what color would you be?
Exactly.
Oh, I hate that
and why? Or what's the one that I got locally? It's like if you were to pick your favorite Game of Thrones character, which would it be and why? And my answer was, I gave them an honest answer, and I never heard back from them. It's just like, I think it was
if I gave my honest
or something. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I gave my honest answer, it would be something like, if you're stupid enough to ask that question, I don't want to work with you.
It is, and I asked it to one candidate total, and he was quite honest about like, this isn't the best question, but let's give it a crack. And I was like, it actually isn't that great of a question, because if you're just trying to please the interviewer, you're just going to get the wrong answer anyway.
Yeah. As I wonder at what point do you answer the question like, I don't like that question,
Right.
versus trying to do everything you can to please the interviewer.
Right.
And I think, I mean, earlier on in my career, I definitely wanted to do everything I could to make sure, because I was, even if I barely knew about this company, I was already emotionally enough linked to this potential role that I
Right.
wanted it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
And so I want to make sure I come up with a good answer there. And even if I knew it's stupid, I would do it. And I think, I think in my as I get along, and
Hmm.
after the success of Datadog, and after being at a number of different roles, I realized what's important to me, and I want to make sure I'm at the right role, rather that's right for both of us,
Hmm.
rather than just try to get the first thing that shows up. And I think, and I also, I hopefully in the interview process, I get to really ask those types, or clarify who is it I'm working for, and make
Right.
sure that I'm interviewing them as much as they are interviewing me, because I've definitely worked for some managers who were not the right fit, and it ended up ending quickly, because it was such a horrible relationship.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's pretty telling actually. It's like the
yeah,
well, maybe some of these little interactions can be telling, and they kind of they add up to like your whole picture, like your pulse read. But you're right, when you're invested in wanting to work for a company, maybe you give the wrong answer so you get the job, and
yeah,
maybe you're in a bad
yeah,
spot and you need to jump ship as fast as
yeah.
possible.
And you
It's
answer in the way you think they want the answer, rather than
right.
what is honest between both of you.
Right. And I think some of
Um,
that is like the luxury of being able to have multiple conversations with multiple companies at the same time,
right.
which I
Yeah.
would hope that people who are applying for jobs have, but in all honesty, that's not always the case.
Yeah. And I think that, sometimes my wife and I will have will be doing something, and after the fact, she'll say, "Oh, that thing that you said, or that cleaning a particular thing that in maybe something in the kitchen, or something in the house," and she'll say, "Oh, that was really romantic what you did." Well, I just did what it was natural for me, and what was natural, the natural thing for me to do, was what she found to be the most perfect thing for me to do around
Right.
her. And hopefully you have that kind of relationship at work, where the natural thing that you do is exactly what the organization wants you to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that again is a little bit harder to find a fit for
Yeah.
prior to.
Yeah.
I do find the take home is pretty handy for that, because some people will, I hate to say this, but like go the extra mile, or find out a
Yeah.
little thing or a wrinkle, or look at past presentations and that kind of stuff. But it is,
Yeah.
again, it's hard. You don't want people spending too much time at home doing like a take home kind of thing when
Right.
there could be a whole bunch of stuff going on. So it's a little bit
Right.
unfair, but it is again a bit
Yeah.
of a shortcut, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
So,
definitely
completely different topic.
yeah.
Do you do you have an iPhone, or are you an Android person?
I do. I mean, I've used both. I worked at Samsung, so of course I had to use Android as well. But I'm a fan of both for different reasons. But my main, what do they call it, daily driver, my everyday
Yeah.
carry is the iPhone 13 Pro. So I'm looking forward to the
So
14.
are you excited about anything for tomorrow? There's an Apple event.
Is it wrong to be excited about the Apple Watch Pro if it's such a thing?
I know, I know. I think that could be interesting. An
It's
extra button. What can you
but
do with
yeah,
an extra button?
exactly. I really, I guess I've got an ideal in my mind of having a device on my watch that I can use when maybe I start running again, but something that could do everything for me that I need when I'm out for a jog or a run, including but not limited to paying for a coffee or something on the way back, but
Hmm.
being able to do Apple Pay or Wi-Fi, music,
Right.
that kind of stuff
But you get that
online.
now with the watch today, with the
You
7
do.
earlier.
So the question is, why would I be excited about the Pro? Like, what could
Yes.
it add? What is within the
Right.
realm of the possible here?
Yeah.
Battery life,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in the newest version is pretty good. So better
Yeah.
battery life and lower weight would always be great.
Yeah.
And maybe I like the
Yeah.
smaller ones, so something even smaller would
Yeah.
be great for me. But that's
Yeah.
those are my needs. But I'm pretty excited about it. The
Yeah.
iPhone 14. I hate to say it, and this is going to make me sound like a fanboy, and perhaps I am, but the camera on the iPhone 14
Mm.
Pro is what I'm more interested than anything
Yeah.
else about. And in fact, the iPad Pro camera I actually do like. As I'm getting older, being able to see a big screen of a
Yeah.
picture that I'm taking is pretty interesting to me. I sort of wish the
Yeah.
sensor or the camera was in the middle of the thing so I could like
Right.
shove it behind the camera or something like that and kind of
Right.
like zoom into stuff. But I
Yeah.
really am interested in like iPad photography because it's so
Yeah.
big,
Yeah.
or at least a device I can like tether somehow to my Sony
Right.
and take photos or what have you kind
Yeah.
of. But yeah, I'm pretty interested. I don't know if they're going to talk about laptops. I know we had someone in the chat earlier who complained to me personally about not having more than one display on the newer M1, M2 kind of laptops, or like one of them is
Mhm.
HDMI, but you can't just have one Thunderbolt
Mm.
port and 3 monitors, which is definitely something
Right.
I didn't realize when we talked about the M series
Right.
prior to that, but I'm definitely really interested in seeing Apple Silicon having like better, more capable Thunderbolt 4
Mhm.
going forward.
Mhm.
That's what I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to. What about yourself?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I mean, I've got the Apple Watch, but this is a series, I guess, Series 7, so the
Okay.
most recent one, because uh, at some point my watch came off and slammed onto a marble floor and smashed, and so had to. But that was a um, Series 0. I mean, it was the first one. It was
The
the
first one.
very
It
first
had no
Apple Watch,
series,
and so
right?
it finally, yeah, there was no series. And so it finally got me to upgrade off of that, and it was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Oh,
Right.
where'd all these features come from?
Right.
But also I have my iPhone is the 10s Max, and
That's what
so
my partner has as
there's been a
well. She
lot of
loves them.
versions since then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it'd be great to get an update. Yeah, I don't need to update it every year, but it'll be nice to, I almost updated it last time, but it would be nice to update it, just for all the new things that would be there. And then I'm also very excited about the if there is a new version of the AirPods Pro, because I had the AirPods Pro, and I still have the left AirPods Pro, and the right one is in some seat back pocket somewhere.
Oh,
Um, because I was distracted because I was holding Stella at the same time, and yeah. So I'm excited. That will. I mean, if nothing else, I will probably be ordering if there are new AirPods, getting those.
I try not to pay attention to the rumors, but that is one of the ones
Yeah.
that I saw, is that they're making it.
Yeah.
I'm using them right
Yeah.
now, and honestly, I really enjoy them, even if
Yeah.
it's just to drown out. Hopefully, it's not too loud. The sound of my air conditioner in the summer.
Yeah.
That
I didn't hear it
when
this
you're
time.
sitting too close to like a
Yeah.
just I just don't want to hear that all day long.
Yeah.
On a plane, same thing. They're not great, but they'll do the job.
Yep.
But it's more like a comfort sort of thing for me,
Yeah.
or if I'm walking, drown out the city noise, especially in New York. I'm going there shortly. Like
Yep.
there's like a din
Yeah.
that some cities have, and it's overwhelming for me. I just want to
Yeah.
listen to music and walk along. So I'm excited for them as well.
Yeah. And then I guess we're coming up to the end. We're right around the
We
hour
are,
slot.
yeah. It felt like this whole episode was
Recommendations.
recommendation. Yeah, it felt like we
Yeah.
recommended things the whole time. But I can give you a quick story. So I was a friend
Yeah.
of mine was going to a show and trying to convince me to go with him. It wasn't far from my house, and I was like, nah, I don't want to go, whatever. But prior to the show, we were just walking around that street, taking some photos of just street stuff, kind of snapshotty sort of
Mhm.
things. And one of the bands that was one of the openers asked us, "Hey, would you like to take photos of the show? I'll get you in for free," kind of thing. And it's not like the tickets
Wow.
were expensive or anything like that. But I thought, like, okay, I'll take some photos. But I guess there's like a whole bunch of stuff in here. But like, I haven't seen a concert in a long time, and it
Mhm.
was nice to be able to get out of the house and see a concert.
Yeah.
So I guess my recommendation is that there's a live show out there even if you're kind of sitting on the fence, it's probably worth going to. It's great. If you feel the need to, I mean, mask up. There's nothing wrong with that. There were
Right.
people there wearing masks. It's not something into the world. If you're having a beer and watching might be a little bit different. I wasn't. I had some food. I watched the show, but yeah, getting out again felt good. I realized that
Yeah.
the sense of normalcy slowly coming back. It depends where you are on this
Right.
scale. Maybe you've been going to concerts already, but for me, it was like an aha moment, or maybe an inflection point where our life's like, yeah, I can go to shows again, which felt great.
No, I don't think I've been to a concert since probably last one was a band called Idan Rochelle Project at the Berkeley or at Berkeley University
Nice.
in Boston. So I mean, it was a place we used to go to a lot for concerts. But that's going to be a good 2.5, maybe 3 years ago.
There you go.
Yeah, I haven't think. I mean, there's
pretty common, I think, for a lot of people. 2.5, 3 years is
Yeah.
But my understanding is this is how the musicians make all their money on merch and shows and stuff like that. The Spotify, as cool as it is, I don't think it's the easiest way to retain cash.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I got 2 things. First off, a podcast I've started listening to. A podcast. I'm never sure what to call these. Something that starts as a video stream on YouTube, but it's a podcast. Often I'll hear it at just audio, but it's got this video version of it too. Whether we talked about Brett Fisher's podcast last time, which was this YouTube stream first, so I'm never sure what to call it. But anyway, there was this podcast. So there was this TV show from 15 years ago or so on. It might have been the WB or some channel like that called Smallville. And it was Superman-based story.
Oh, that was shot here. I used to live across from the high school the high school. I think it was an elementary school that they made the high school, but yeah, they'd shoot there all the time. It's kind of cool to watch.
So there's this podcast by the guy who played Lex Luthor in that series. His name's Michael Nussbaum or something Baum. And so it's called Inside of You.
Okay.
And he's often got people from Smallville, the Smallville cast, talking about what they're doing now, or other people in similar shows, Arrow, or I don't know what that show was called, but other people from other similar shows. And so it's been interesting. And I guess it was especially interesting because a lot of the stories have all jumped onto the mentions of people's relationship with like Allison Mack, who is one of the characters on that show, who also turns out was very involved in the Nexium cult thing.
Interesting.
Do you hear anything? There's a show on.
Yeah. This is where we're actually get stopped on YouTube.
Yeah. So anyway, this Inside of You podcast is interesting because of it's I find it interesting.
Very cool.
The other recommendation, very different. So I had mentioned this show that my mother got me to watch, and I kind of got into, called Beauty Queen of Jerusalem or something like that. It's an Israeli show. And then most recently, I kind of binged through an entire 3 seasons of a Turkish show called The Gift.
Oh, I've actually heard of this and have not watched it. It's good, yes.
Pretty interesting. It's kind of sci-fi, but you don't realize it's sci-fi until a few episodes in, and then
no spoilers.
There's enough that's like almost real life, trying to figure out what's going on, but then there's sci-fi being added to it, and that was a lot of fun. Just finished it last night.
That's well up my alley. I like that when it's like science future or like near future sci-fi kind of stuff.
Other worlds, parallel worlds, and neat stuff.
So we got one comment from my mother, of all people, saying the last time she went to a concert was to see Jimmy Buffett with my sister, which is kind of telling. Yeah, so I think get out there, like support your local musicians if you feel comfortable.
Yeah,
but they're certainly out there playing, trying to get some cash. So.
Cool. Well, this is fun.
Yeah, definitely. You see it now?
My mom likes my shirt. Yes. Yes. IQ or senility. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the two.
One of the two.
All right, sir. Have yourself a great week. It's always great.
Yeah, you
touching
too.
base. And thanks
Yep.
a ton for the people in the comments. I definitely appreciate it. I realize we've only got 4 fans, but they're very vocal.
They
Which is
are,
great.
yeah. And they're our best fans. They are the
Absolutely
perfect.
top notch.
Okay. Well, we'll end it here. Thanks.
See you later,
Bye.
folks.